Michigan's in the middle of another scandal. What is Harbaugh's culpability?
Jim Harbaugh is back under investigation again, and we're back on the Big Mountain, where we bring you a detailed focus on the Big Ten and the Mountain West.
Here we go, Steve. Our first standalone episode on this huge news that has been out now for a little while. Jim Harbaugh and the Michigan Wolverines, maybe not so much Jim Harbaugh, but we're going to get into Jim Harbaugh and the Michigan Wolverine football team. And the second scandal of this year, really, this one being the cheating, if you will, or sign stealing scandal. And I'm going to focus this, honestly, more on Harbaugh than I am the details about what was done. I mean, you can comment on that. We'll talk about it a little bit. But I really want to just focus on Harbaugh. You know, is he culpable in this? There's been some recent changes to some bylaws that frankly are not in his favor right now.
Yeah.
So, you know, like I said, as we haven't really been talking about this too much, but certainly it's the hottest college football item that's been out there for weeks. This sign stealing scandal. Harbaugh continues to deny any sort of knowledge or awareness of this illegal sign stealing scandal. Where is that line? Like, what becomes illegal sign stealing versus, it's just part of the game sign stealing? So I want to talk about that briefly first, because I think some people would say, well, any sign stealing is legal, and other people would say zero sign stealing is legal. So, you know, what would you consider to be proper versus improper?
Right.
So, you know, obviously in-game type of stuff, things that you're seeing on the sideline, watching the game, you know, different patterns during a game. Certainly, you're going to gather information as a game goes on what some of these potential signals might be.
Like every time Peyton Manning yells Omaha, he's going to throw a touchdown right over our heads.
That would be a good one.
Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
They should know that's coming. You know, but what is against the rules is any sort of advanced scouting, specifically using electronic taping or anything like that, which is what is at least accused of what is going on here. I think there's a ton of evidence. Again, I'm not going to get into the evidence, but a lot of evidence that is actually what happened here. So we're clearly, I think, talking about past that gray line of, is it maybe okay or is it not? I think it's clear right now, this is not okay. It's well beyond the realm of what you consider normal football sign stealing, so to speak. So Connor Stalions is the accused individual here in terms of, that we know of, at least right now, of doing this, apparently paying people to go to stadiums, to record these signs. And he's, you know, been seen on sidelines. I think you want to maybe say something about that. Yep. And again, I'm not going to get into a lot of that detail here. My focus, really, I want it to be on Harbaugh. So let's get to Harbaugh. The coach could very well be held responsible here for the actions of anyone in his football program. Mm-hmm. And that's really due to, in part, some newly altered NCAA rules. Those changes to the NCAA coach's responsibility bylaws all but pretty much guarantee Harbaugh will be culpable if there's actual wrongdoing going on here. So I'm not going to be a judge and a jury at this point. Again, lots of evidence that we're hearing that this is likely happening. And, you know, a lot of people are going, well, what, does Harbaugh know? Does Harbaugh not know? Didn't he know? Frankly, according to the new changes to the bylaws, that's irrelevant. It's irrelevant if he knows. He is in charge of it. The bylaw change stated, and this was just done in January, so this isn't even a year old. It was bylaw 11.2.11, if anybody wants to go and check it out. But it reads that a head coach shall be held responsible for their actions and the actions of the institutional staff members. The big change there went from, it now says shall, it used to be, was presumed. Mm-hmm. So it's much more strict in terms of you shall be held responsible. Basically, it means if there's a violation,
it's on the head coach.
It's on him. Yep. It's on him. The buck stops there. Full responsibility goes to the head coach. Now, remember, there's always an ongoing case before as well that was misleading NCAA investigators and whatnot. So this is potentially unprecedented that we have one head coach dealing with simultaneous NCAA investigations in the same football season within, what are we talking, 4 months or something?
Yes.
I don't know when the first one technically started, but
Well, they did the
it's still
suspension
ongoing.
at the beginning of the season to try. Michigan did the suspension to try and kind of offset the NCAA investigation,
Yes.
dating back to COVID timeframe.
Okay.
But yeah, that's very unprecedented.
So I want to quickly break down before I want to certainly get your opinion. You're the Big Ten guy. I know you've got some opinions on this. I want to look at what are the potential penalties here. And there's been some more recent precedents on this in terms of the NCAA and what they've done. Let's look at a couple paths that they may take. It does seem as if the NCAA is not likely to apply bowl bans because recent guidelines from the board of directors suggest that they don't want to punish the innocent.
Future students, yeah.
So, specifically the students, the athletic students now and in the future, they're not interested in punishing those that weren't a part of said scandals and things like that. So let's look at the Tennessee case that just happened. There was a massive fine there for Tennessee of about $8 million. They did not have a bowl ban, just a really large fine. When you look at Arizona State, there was a bowl ban, but the speculation there is that the case, or in that case, that the school either was not able to or not willing to pay a certain fine. And I don't know what that number would have been. So if they're not willing to pay a fine, then, they got to go to plan B, which is, I guess, a bowl ban. Yep. The other thing, so I guess that leads me to believe that a bowl ban's probably pretty unlikely here. Even if it's found that this happened and Harbaugh's guilty, at least culpable for this. Now, Harbaugh could be assessed a show cause penalty, basically blackballing him from being an NCAA head coach. At this point, he's made comments about looking back to the NFL. So, okay, I'm banned from the NCAA. I'm going back to the NFL anyway. So part of me looks at this and I just say, okay, you're going to monetarily hit the college, the university, I should say. What does that do to Harbaugh or the football program? And I get it. You don't want to affect the innocent student athletes. Yes. I get that. But there also has to be, in my opinion, a direct correlation to what was done and something with that program. And just a $1 million, $8 million fine, to me, doesn't get to the heart of the matter. I mean, he goes scot-free, in my opinion. And he's making millions of dollars potentially in the NFL. So what does he care? The other thing that I want to bring up, what about the Big Ten? Obviously, the NCAA is at the front of this, but the Big Ten could also potentially step in. I know typically they kind of, again, let the NCAA do their thing. I don't think the Big Ten would do something above and beyond what the NCAA would do. But again, the Big Ten can be involved in this as well. So some questions there, Steve. Where are you at with all this?
Well, first of all, like you mentioned, Harbaugh has a long history. He's obviously a good coach. He's a very good X's and O's coach. His teams in college and the NFL have performed well. But he has a history of doing what Jim Harbaugh does, what the hell Jim Harbaugh wants to do. That's just the way it is. He's a strong believer in himself. He has a lot of confidence in himself and his way of doing things. So Jim Harbaugh does what he wants to do. He's under current investigation. There's been some other things before. He's just, that's who he is. He believes in himself. And if he thinks it's right, he doesn't care. So good point about the precedents. However, I would say this particular case is unprecedented.
Yeah.
And here's why. I can't, and I've tried to go back and find other examples of this. And really, we've never seen this in the college game. The closest comparison is the NFL. They had the spy gates later on in deflate gate, but I think this is more similar to the in the NFL when they had the spy gate, which was just a crazy thing with the New England Patriots. I think this is very similar, and we've never seen anything like that in college. To me, this affects the integrity of the game. The other things, okay, you bought a recruit a cheeseburger. Who cares? You brought some recruits on when there was COVID and there were certain specific protocols that you're supposed to follow, but you didn't. You did this instead. Whatever. At the end of the day, who really cares? Like, I'm sure there was a bunch of schools buying cheeseburgers for recruits or having them on campus when they weren't supposed to during COVID or having them come in contact with people they weren't supposed to. Yeah. But this is really unprecedented where you have an employee, a staff member of the football staff going, visiting games, which is not allowed, buying seats, sending other people there. There's a whole web of money that was used. Where did that money come from? And it's hard to believe that Jim Harbaugh didn't know something about that with all of the logistics that went into sending scouts to all these games. And now recently we have footage of Stallions on the sideline of a Central Michigan game in Central Michigan gear, watching across the sideline against Michigan State. I think it was about a week or so before, or a couple weeks before Michigan played Michigan State.
Yeah.
So how do you make that happen? How do you put a plant on another team's sideline? Just absolutely crazy. And, you know, when they look at this, and from what I understand, the rumors going around, the different schools have presented evidence to the Big Ten and to the NCAA.
Yeah.
And what they're alleging and what they've turned over is not just evidence that Michigan was doing this, but how did they use this information then to gain a competitive advantage and win games, alter the course of basically Big Ten history.
Right.
Before this started going on, Michigan was a consistent third-place team in their own division, had not beaten Ohio State since I think going back before the Urban Meyer era at Ohio State. And they start doing this, and it completely flips the script. Now they've beaten Ohio State 2 years in a row, back-to-back Big Ten champions, back-to-back college football playoff spots. Just totally changed the trajectory of the entire conference, the competitive balance within the conference, and which has bled out into overall the larger college football playoff picture. And so, that, you know, obviously that's why the NCAA definitely needs to be involved.
Sure.
So to me, this is completely unprecedented. You talked about penalties. I think we don't know that if Harbaugh knew this. It's hard for me to believe that he didn't know this was going on. But like you said, if the Michigan is found guilty of doing this, the NCAA rules and guidelines say he is responsible no matter what.
Correct.
And with an open investigation that he already had, that the NCAA was not happy at all with the efforts that Michigan was making and the cooperation of Jim Harbaugh and his staff, this is like a second offense kind of thing.
Yes.
With one offense open.
Yes.
Like you're on probation for one offense and you do the same stuff, if not worse again, actually much worse again. So to me, I think potentially, I really thought the Big Ten would get involved maybe over the bye week, but they didn't do that. That would have been their time to get involved.
Yeah.
Michigan suspended that one coach, that one staffer.
Yep.
So at this point, it looks like the Big Ten's not getting involved. So to me, I think this is going to stretch out after the season. And then I think you could see a scenario where the NCAA has to go back 3 years, 3 seasons of Michigan being a very successful program, take away wins, take away those wins over Ohio State, take away Big Ten championships, vacate those, erase them from the record books. I could definitely see that happening, which to Michigan, who their currency is their reputation. Obviously, they have a lot of money, but what they value most is their reputation. They talk about the Michigan man. Michigan man does things a certain way. Jim Harbaugh's a Michigan man. So for the NCAA to come back and say, you cheated, we're take those banners down, take those victories. You did not beat Ohio State fair and square these last 2 years. You did not win the Big Ten championship fair and square. I could definitely see them doing that to the University of Michigan, which to me would be a very severe punishment and affect the school, not the future students that are going to go there by taking away scholarships or bowls or whatever.
Okay.
And then with Harbaugh, to me, I have a hard time seeing that he is going to coach again in college football after this year.
Right.
Like you said, he flirted with the NFL. He already is under investigation. If they bring the hammer down this time, I could see a show cause penalty for 10 years could happen on him and probably some of his staff members if they were involved in this. And like you said, he has other avenues. He can go to the NFL. I'm sure he's made a ton of money there, being an NFL coach and then a coach of Michigan Wolverines. So I have a hard time seeing him coming back after this year. I think him and this team, they just want to finish out this year. They want to beat Ohio State again. They want to win the Big Ten again, hopefully get to a playoff. And then they're just hoping and praying that the NCAA doesn't take that away from them afterwards. So that's basically my thoughts in a nutshell. And I'm sure we're going to continue to follow this case.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to focus this a little bit more on Harbaugh.
Yeah.
There's a ton of reporting on what was done allegedly and the evidence of what was done. I don't feel a need for us to go through that. it's everywhere. You can take a look at that. But I think talking specifically about Harbaugh and the future of the program and potential penalties is where I wanted to kind of focus this on, because that, to me, that's a little bit more interesting at this point, because we kind of know what's alleged to have happened. And frankly, there could be even more than what we know right now, and that would make it even more damning. But I think the fact that any culpability lies with him, that tells you all you need to know, because there's a lot of people wondering, what does it mean for Harbaugh? Well, quite frankly, it means everything. I mean, if this is done the way I think a lot of people think it's going to be done, that it's not smoke. There is a massive fire happening. It's at Harbaugh's hands.
Exactly. And there's all this debate in the media about, is it a big deal? Is it not a big deal? Whatever. It doesn't matter what people think.
Yeah.
Okay. It's going to come down to, did they violate NCAA rules?
Right.
Sure looks like it, but they're going to do this investigation.
Right.
And if they did, it doesn't matter whether we think Harbaugh knew or not. The bylaws say, as you stated, that he is responsible for what happens in the program. So I think the media is focusing too much on the public perception, what people think. Is this fair? Is this not fair? When it's going to come down to the investigation and what the NCAA does. And you laid out pretty well exactly what the rules and the guidelines are and what could happen.
Hey, well, we appreciate you tuning in. Let us know where your thoughts are here, specifically on Jim Harbaugh and Michigan moving forward. I know Steve obviously put his opinions out there about what potentially could happen in terms of wins being taken away, banners being taken down. And give us some thoughts. Not necessarily we hate Michigan, but, what are you actually thinking here in terms of where things are at right now and where things could be headed? Maybe some things that we missed on this, and we can probably do an update before too long, because I don't think this is going away anytime soon.
No.
So, hey, with that, we thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on the Big Mountain.